Billiken fans, welcome back. It's Zach Miller and Peter Hale. It's the Midtown Madness Podcast. Before we get going, thank you so much for listening. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Also, if you're on YouTube, anything that we talk about, you got something to say about it, drop a comment immediately. It helps. It really does. It's season 4. Once again, the Midtown Madness Podcast is brought to you by Two Men and a Garden. Pete, I actually got to see our good friend Joel of Two Men and a Garden on the way into Chaffetz on Saturday night. Good to see him. The vibes were good, that I got to see him, but the vibes were not good when it comes to Billiken basketball. But I will say, it reminded me that I need to get some salsa for these, the football parties, right? The Eastern Conference, or not Eastern Conference, the AFC, the NFC, then the big game. You got to have Two Men in a Garden at your party. If you don't, it's just not the Super Bowl. Can I say that? It's just not.
You cannot, but no one will know.
Oh, no one will know because nobody listens, right? Yeah. When you're out shopping for your Super Bowl party. I said it. What's up? You can pick it up. Two Men in a Garden salsa at any local grocery store. But if you want to get the specialty stuff, twomeninthegarden.com is where you're headed. Follow them on social media at Two Men Salsa on Instagram and Twitter. Pete, nihilism. I talked about it a little bit in philosophy class, in my time in SLU, at SLU. But I'm considering a switch to it permanently.
We may not have a choice, Zach, if things keep going like they are. I think when I started this podcast with you a few years ago, I was in my late 30s, and I am now in my late 50s. I don't know. I don't know how many more seasons of this show I'll physically be able to do, because I'm just withering away into nothing before your very eyes. So, I don't know what's going on, man. But the vibes, as they say, they're not great.
It's at the point I texted you today. It's like neither of us really got into any post game, banter online. Like we don't even we couldn't even muster up the energy to be negative online about it.
Yeah, at least not publicly. I definitely had a couple a couple private channels that were open that were a little bit bouncing around, but it's it was nothing that I had the energy to actually put forth any public kind of statements on Twitter or anywhere else. That's for sure.
I think people are learning that I just cannot do random Billiken tweets or texts. Because for a long time, it was like, I'd get a text no matter what. Like if the Bills were doing bad, I'd get a text about it. Bills were doing good, I'd get a text about it. And after a while, it's just I can't, I talk about it on Two Men in the Garden's time.
Yeah.
I need some space.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Or maybe enough people got snapped back at from you at the wrong time or something. They know not to poke the bear anymore.
It's literally like hearing the same thing from 10 different types of people.
Yes.
It's ridiculous. I really don't know where to start. Because I'm going to be honest, when you see these games go the way they do, it's hard to find another slant.
Right.
Yeah. But I mean, like you said, the vibes are just not good. And it began this week with Tim Dalger leaving the program on Monday, the 22nd of January, due to a personal family matter. Conflicting, not to I think to put it best, is it an urgent personal family matter? And someone DM'd us. I urgently need to get off Travis Ford's team.
Yeah, it seemed pretty clear from the start that it was just the sort of boilerplate language for one of these things. His statement was, quote, "My time here has allowed me to grow and learn so much. Unfortunately, I won't be able to continue due to an urgent personal family matter. I look forward to my future endeavors with hopes of pursuing a professional playing career." And then Ford put out a statement, quote, "Tim is a fine young man, and we wish him nothing but the best. I'm confident that Tim will be able to fulfill his aspirations to eventually play professionally, and he knows that we are here to support him moving forward." But Zach, so they put out those statements, right? They even, I was kind of surprised, put an article that he was leaving the program on the official website, and then that was more or less the same thing that was put out on STL Today by Stu. And then within a matter of a couple hours, they removed his profile page on the roster on the official website. And there are a lot of players at SLU over the years who left, even midseason, even under bad circumstances, like really controversial circumstances, that were not, they didn't even put out statements like this because there was either ill will or scandal or whatever. Why are they all still there? And he gets deleted from the roster. That just doesn't seem like something you would do if, he had a ill family member or something like that he had to go home and tend to.
Yeah, that it is really weird. It's funny. I mean, we do have one of the best in the biz working sports information. So I will say that, which I really don't know. I don't think. Man, that's just so crazy to do that right away. Like, why? But like, why? Why delete it right away? Because if you delete it right away, like has nobody figured out that West Pine Bills are insane? Like I'm a crazy person. They're also a similar type of crazy, but through a different their crazy comes out in a different art form,
detail oriented.
Yes, like they are on top of everything that is said and everything that is done out of that program.
Yeah,
they know that we're online. Like SLU Twitter over the past 4 years has become a thing that SLU Twitter at multiple times has caused changes in the athletic department,
right?
Because of how much they're paying attention. Like West Pine Bills has gotten manifested merchandise, and so why would people have a microscope to your program, just don't delete them for a week, because we're gonna be done checking at that point.
But why at all, right? I mean, because there's still it's a reference tool. And in future, think of how many times you've gone back and you've asked us questions like, who was the starting five on for Cruz's last game or Ford's first game or something like that. And you have the ability to go back and look at those rosters. For him to not even be there is just so weird. Like, you can't just pretend he didn't exist. I don't get it.
And that is funny that you explain it like that, because it's Brian Kunderman is the best in the business. He has spent a large amount of time making sure the rosters are in there. If there are not many athletics websites. Okay, I'm making a wild generalization and guess. My guess is that most NCAA Division I men's basketball programs don't have a roster on here from the 1914-1915 men's basketball roster. I mean, everybody that they know played on that team is in here. Carl Hawk, I'm not going to read it. But the point is that is really weird now that you put it that way. Because that's the
Yeah,
way
it's a reference tool.
that's the way BK treats it. And well done. Like it's amazingly done.
There are guys on previous rosters who were kicked out of school.
Yes.
Like there were people who left amid controversial, investigations and things like that. There were people who left in very publicly well-known bad blood. Dalger could have gone around the whole locker room and flipped double birds to everybody.
You're cool.
Coach.
Yeah, fuck you.
Walked up and down the
You're
halls,
cool.
walked up and down the athletic department halls and said that. And like still he played like 20 games or whatever. Like you still have to acknowledge that he was there. That's why that's just a very weird thing. Like even if you hated the dude or wanted to like forget about him, like I don't think that's the way to do it.
I mean,
it's just very weird.
Is it like, because it almost comes off as like taking him legitimately off the roster. Like he's off. Like I don't know. It's so weird how I'm explaining it, but like it's almost treating the online page as if it's the official roster.
Right.
Like obviously it is the official roster. Like, so does he go back on after the season's over?
I don't know.
That's the question.
That's a good question. I have no idea. It's just a weird thing. It's a weird way to handle it. I don't know. I don't understand.
That seems to be kind of par for the course, doesn't it? I think we're gonna have to do a dive because there's this. I want to get into it eventually, but this field hockey situation is wild. Basically they had a party to announce this new field hockey field in conjunction with the university, and then there's been nothing since then. Like we haven't got a rendering. How do we not have a rendering of a new athletic facility? Right. And it's supposed to be be ready for next season. This place does so much weird stuff, dude.
It's weird. It's definitely weird. And I think this was what, Monday, Dalger's thing, and it just kind of set the tone for the week, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I think there are some people like right away online who are like, well, if he's a malcontent, if he's a cancer, get him out of there and we'll be better for it. But Zach, 2 days later, they played a game and it did not look like they were any better for it.
Well, we were shorthanded. We didn't have all our guys.
That's right. We're healthy now, but now we're missing players.
Yes, of course. Man, we have got at the end of the basketball, at the end of the segment, the UMass segment, we need to talk about just once again, I'm sorry to go down this road, but we need to talk about the excuses because holy hell, do none of them make sense. And I have a take. I have a giant take I need to unleash.
Well, why don't we at least give the high level of what happened here in this?
Yes, let's talk Davidson.
Yeah. This was on Wednesday, January 24th, an 84-61 loss against Davidson at home in Chaffetz Arena. The first half was ugly, Zach. I didn't like the way it was played. I didn't like the way it looked. It was hard to watch. But SLU still went into the locker room up 31-28. Davidson was 30% from the field. SLU was 0 for 12 from 3. And yet they come out of the locker room in the second half, and Davidson scored 56 second half points to beat SLU by 23. Double the amount that they scored in the first half. How on earth does that happen, Zach?
This team is over it.
That's simple.
Dude, I'm at the point where I just think this team does not believe they either cannot defend the way Travis Ford wants them to defend, or they just don't they don't trust it.
I don't know what it is because I can't tell, right? Like I'm looking, I'm like, so what are they supposed to be doing? And I can't tell. And then I'm like, well, are they not executing? It's so weird to be able to look and just not know, right? Like I don't see them practice. I don't know what they're trying to scheme before every game or anything. It's so confusing to watch. So SLU actually, so they gave up the lead within the first minute of the second half. They actually tied it a couple minutes later, and then Davidson slowly works up, a 9 to 12 point lead, which is more or less what the margin was for most of the second half until like the last 4 minutes. And then instead of SLU doing that thing where they hit a couple late threes to make it look like was closer than it was, Davidson just kept going, and it looked like SLU quit. And so you circle back to the defense, Zach, is so bad. Mostly a man. They did go to a zone for a bit in the second
Oh,
half.
they're definitely not men.
Well, a man to at least that was the idea,
Sorry,
right? So
yes,
they went
sorry.
to a zone. The first couple possessions in that zone went okay. They actually, I think, what they either wound up with a turnover or a couple good stops in that section there. And then Davidson hit a wide open three from the top of the key early in the shot clock. And it was clear the zone was a bad idea. This was the play that kind of broke me in this one. The way that like Barstow's coast to coast play did in the VCU game, where I was just like, you come out in this zone and normally when we do, it's a 1-3-1, right? And it looked like just a weak, like a soft deep in the pocket kind of 2-3 zone because they dribble. I think they passed it once or twice, and there's a guy dead center, top of the key, with no one in the neighborhood, right? Like no, absolutely nobody there. Hits a three, and you're just like, what are you do? What are you doing? What is this? How is that even possible? There were 20 something seconds on the shot clock when that happened, and I was just like, that's it's hard to be that far away from your assignment in a zone that early in the possession, right? Like it's crazy to me that's what happened. And whether they're in zone or man, they just leave the perimeter so unguarded that it's always going to come back to bite them. They got away with it in the first half, when Davidson's missing. They missed a lot of open looks, but that's not going to last forever. And of course, they went off in the second half. It just felt inevitable, I guess, in some ways, but it just got worse than even I expected.
It was crazy. It like I don't even think I was paying attention the last 5 minutes of that game because it just was. There was no coming back. You just felt like Davidson was toying with us, and this was just gonna like eventually just drift away.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even like there was just no hope at all of this being a game. And I think I left with about I've left more games this year, like with like time remaining on the clock, than I can ever remember.
Yeah.
It's
You,
just
you're not missing anything. I mean, this one went from like bad to worse in the last 4 minutes. So you didn't really, no matter when you left, you didn't really miss anything important here. Sometimes, like I said, they hit a couple late shots and you're like, oh, we lost by 9. That's not so bad. But it was the opposite way this time around. Zach, they just don't force turnovers. 3 in the game, right? 3 turnovers in the whole game that Davidson had. And Davidson outscored them. I love this stat in points and turnovers, outscored SLU 21-0. So SLU forces 3 turnovers, convert nothing off of that, right? Davidson, on the other hand, gets 21 points off turnovers. That is actually not even the whole margin of victory, but most of it. But a pretty wild stat, nonetheless.
this year has been the year of just wild, stupid stats.
Yeah, every game
But
produces something crazy.
what's the next? I think VC or not VC UMass is going to be that they made 11 threes. Somebody on Billikens.com mentioned that they made 11 threes.
Yes.
They went 14 of 16 from the line and still lost.
Yeah.
I mean, this is literally a team of guys who don't know how to play defense.
No, there are no principles in place. Like you can't see any of it. They don't talk. They ball watch. I mean, all the time they're just watching. They don't close out. I mean, my God, that's the first thing that stood out to me this season, because when I was at SLU, we had a defense built on closeouts, and then they go under on all high ball screens. I think Meadows who got caught on a high, ball screen from Cross. And then Cross starts heading downhill toward the basket, and Meadows is just like caught under him. Like Cross was like a plow or something, just like moving Meadows down. And at no point did he get around him to go up to the perimeter. And I can't remember who the guard was who had. Oh, sorry, I'm thinking about the UMass game now. This happened in the UMass game. I'm talking about Cross. Anyway, but that's just the kind of stuff that happens with this team. It drives me crazy. And like we were saying earlier, I don't know what they're trying to do there. It doesn't even look like the first day of practice. It looks like the first day they've played college ball, first day they've met each other with a coach. And none of them seem to have come from places where they learned any defense whatsoever. I've never seen a team that looks this overmatched, unprepared, and just lost on defense. It's almost, I mean, it's amazing to watch. It really is. You got nothing, huh?
Like I have, like I just need to know whether Travis is designing this defense and they just are not good enough to execute it. Like going under ball screens is, we talk about it all the time. That's like one of the big things. Like I think Gaines harps on it. West Plain Bills harps on it. I think you are, like everybody harps on it. I don't. I mean, obviously I'll talk about it, but is Travis telling them to go under the ball screen, or are they and they're just not, and they're like, or are they just not listening? And Travis is telling them to go. I don't know.
I think that's what they're doing. I think he doesn't want. So Majerus has a quote that was conveniently shared last week by Paul Biancardi, who does the Mondays with Majerus on Twitter, which I love. Every week, it's just like it's like just a shot of dopamine straight into my brain.
Yeah,
man. It's so good. This week, appropriately enough, was about this very principle. And Majerus said, switch. Don't fear the mismatch. The thing you should fear is an open jump shooter. Like, don't worry about the mismatch, right? Like, trust your guys. And the fact that we always leave the jump shooter open, right, is just it's crazy to me. We're always playing with fire, and sometimes we get away with it for a game. Sometimes we get away with it for just a half or a stretch. But sometimes you get burned on it over and over again. I don't really understand it necessarily. It's clearly not working. I mean, like shooters keep getting better, like the game is evolving, and we seem to be like stuck in this 20-year-old defensive mindset where it's like, well, these guys aren't going to hit threes, so go under. It's fine. Stay, pack it in. I really don't understand, man. I don't get it at all.
Jimerson had a tough night in this one. He couldn't get any looks. 0 of 5, all 3-pointers, and didn't score. We'd find out later that he was dealing with the loss of his grandfather.
Yeah.
Father, yes. So, tough night for him. Ezewiro had 20. Hargrove had a quiet 14. I think I actually said, when did Hargrove score 14?
Yeah, I felt the same way. Right.
Hughes was brutal in this one. Meadows and Medley couldn't get anything going. Even went out together. Of course, Grant Huffman, aka Davey Franco.
Tall Dave Franco, who does the Steph Curry thing with his mouth guard and makes
everybody hit. Somebody said Steph Curry, and then I said Patrick Kane.
Yeah.
But I went with hockey. But yeah. Reed Bailey, has progressed as a sophomore. Angelo Brizzi, of course, the token, like that token guard at Villanova, right?
Right.
The Villanova name. Yeah, the Italian named Villanova guard. He actually transferred from Villanova, and he was solid in this one.
Yeah.
This is the worst Davidson team though that
That
we've
whole
seen.
I couldn't shake that thought the whole first half. I was just like, these guys, this is like right. They look like a Davidson team, right? Like there's a bunch of tall white shooters. They look like a Davidson team. They kind of act like a Davidson team, but they're just not as good, right? Like
Right.
they always have a few dudes who are just great players, whether it's a great Kellen Grady or Lee
Hmm.
or just Brockovich, like the guys who have killed us over the years. Davidson's always got at least one, usually two. You got to watch them around the perimeter all the time. I don't know what it is. This team is just not there yet. Like they look very much like a replacement level Davidson team, like a bunch of guys off the bench. I would say, with the exception of Huffman, he's progressed into a really nice player. But I couldn't believe what this team looked like compared to most Davidson teams in terms of just like they're just not as polished, they're not as smooth, they're not as quick, they don't shoot as well. It's just not all there. And yet they win they win by 23 because our defense was bad. Our offense, we shot 37.5% from the field. We shot 15% from three. I mean, like, so we gave it to them on both ends, right? Like just you're not going to beat anybody when you're playing like this. So I don't know if Davidson's really going to get it together under Matt McKillop, but they don't look as sharp as they did under his dad. That's for sure.
Uh, Things got interesting after the game. Travis didn't talk to Earl and Rammer, and he was over 30 minutes late before talking to any of the press in the post game press conference.
Yeah.
Apparently there was a meeting, and I all I know is that, and we'll get to the quotes, but Pete, like, if it's anything other than Travis Ford, like admitting he has no clue, like, what are we doing? Like, I really hope this was not a Travis lecturing the team talk. I hope this was a team speaking their mind.
Yeah, if you listen to Azuero, it sounds like that's what it was, right? He goes, we said what had to be said, things that have been unspoken. Everyone told coach how they felt, and we heard what coach had to say. It doesn't matter if people took it well or not. And then he added, there's nothing we can't fix, and that's why we're not worried about it in the locker room. So it sounds to me like they just kind of all had it out right after the game. I've seen instances where the coaches have a lot to say after a game, and that door, much to the chagrin of the sports information director, stays closed longer than they normally would, right? And then I've seen times where the players want to have a meeting, just players. I don't know if I've ever actually seen like a whole like a what sounds like the players going, we need to talk this out now, after the game. I in my time never saw that. So it sounds pretty unusual. We know the situation's pretty dire. I would have loved to be a fly on the wall and hear what was going on. 2 days after you have a player leave the program, uh, right after you lose a home game to a really down Davidson team who just blew you out, scored 56 second half points. I would have loved to hear what was said. I
How
really
did
don't know.
how do those come about? Like, where do you like when it's team when a team wants to have a players only meeting? How does that kind of
Well, that
manifest?
that would normally not happen right before or after a game, right? Like that's the kind of thing that the veterans, the leaders, the captains, whoever, whatever the power structure is within a roster, those guys are going to kind of say, hey, hang around after practice. We're going to talk in the locker room, just us kind of thing. Like that's not unheard of. That probably happens a lot over the course of a player's career. Um, not like all the time, but every once in a while you have a point in the season where you need something like that, where you got to get guys on the same page and maybe have some uncomfortable conversations, things that aren't being said otherwise in the normal course of things. Obviously, the coaches meet all the time, just them, and I think good coaches know when to meet with players, one on one or in groups or as a unit. And as a manager, I've been part of those things from time to time as well. But this was pretty unusual. I had never really seen something like this happen firsthand anyway. And I imagine there was a lot of venting in this, right? Like there's the frustration is palpable. You're seeing that out there on these players for sure.
Yeah, we need to next time we get an alumni on or an alum on, we need to go down to like that sort of team meeting, players only meeting,
Yeah,
coach calling me. Like I think that's super interesting, that dynamic, because you've got a bunch of guys that are all basically the same age, that
yeah.
and you've got quote unquote leader. Like I just want like it just I just think it'd be an odd dynamic.
The thing that's even more interesting to me now is the way that the veteran players are not necessarily the guys who have been in a program the longest because of transfers and everything. Like there are sophomores and juniors who have been around longer than juniors and seniors in some cases. So we do have two guys who have been in the program a really long time, and Jimerson and Hargrove. So they seem like the natural guys who are like, who would be the leaders here, even if there are other grad transfers or seniors who are their age or older or whatever who are around. It's different if it's Jimerson and Hargrove leading something like that as opposed to like a Meadows, who came in later. So I don't know what the whole dynamic is here. As Brad was the one talking to media after the game because he was, he's the one who probably had the best game, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he was the leader in the locker room, so to speak. Maybe he is. I don't know the whole dynamic there. But yeah, well, so actually another players only meeting that I remember. I mean, they happen in coaching changes, right? Like there was when Romar left after my freshman year. I know the players got together at least once, if not more, just players, and talked out what they wanted to do, how they wanted to handle things. And then I think, Romar talked to people. I don't know if he talked to people individually. Um, but yeah, to let them know he was going and everything. And so yeah, that's another natural point when you got to get the guys together and figure out what you're doing. But that was also at a time where transferring meant sitting a year, possibly losing a year of eligibility. It was a lot harder to do, and guys just didn't do it. So it's a little different now too in that regard.
Pete, let's go ahead. Oh well, final thought on this game. It really felt like the season ended on Wednesday. I don't know why. I just didn't. It just felt like a give up. Like even in SIU, the SIU game, which was decidedly worse to watch, it felt like this team is bad right now, but like that 30 points that can happen on the road. You just stink it up. Like it's still the non-conference season. We're in late January and this team is horrendous.
When you have a bad loss at home like this, followed by an emotional team meeting immediately after the game,
Mm-hmm.
it's the kind of thing that feels like it's either the reset and we're going to start and
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be different from here on, or it's just the beginning of the end. And we're all counting down the days to get this season over with and move on to the next thing. Whether that's the next season or the next school or the next career or what. So unfortunately, it feels like it's more the latter than the former in this case. And yeah, I don't disagree with you that that was just a really tough feeling after that game.
This had some lead up to it that I kind of missed, and then caught wind, 6 to 7 p.m. But leading up to this game, this 84-73 loss against UMass, we heard rumors that a loss in the game would mean the immediate end of Travis Ford as head coach at SLU, meaning that they would let him go mid-season. And I think we should talk about that after
Yeah.
this game. I talk about getting rid of a coach, when to get rid of a coach, why you would, when you would. But Chaffetz also tweeted out before the game that he was coming to this one and that it's a must-win game, in quotes, must win. Did you read anything into that tweet? I mean, like, I find it. Good Lord, help me out. I found it, you know, I kind of believed it, honestly. I thought it, he kind of meant it, but apparently not, I guess. So, well,
It's yeah,
which is fine.
when you see that tweet and there's already a little bit of buzz, like, is this it? Is this it? I mean,
No.
coming out of that Davidson game, you're like, it can't get worse than that, right? Like it
Oh,
certainly
sure it can.
yeah, I guess that remains to be seen. But yeah, this one wasn't as bad anyway. But regardless, when he tweets that, you certainly feel like, I mean, the guy whose name is on the building, we just take his quotes more seriously, even though most of his tweets and public quotes and everything are a little more positive and like rah rah and stuff like that, as they should be. Like, come on. But the you got a little bit of an ominous vibe already swirling, and then you see that and you're like, oh man, okay, this is serious. Like the dude is coming into town, right? Like this is a big deal. And I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of the combination of those things got a lot of chatter swirling among the fan base, I think.
Yeah.
And
I'll add that Porter Moser, that it came out that Porter Moser won it out of Norman, Oklahoma.
that's another rumor. And
I mean, it's a rumor that adds to the idea, the mystique of like, oh, if Porter wants out of Norman,
yeah,
and a bunch of slew boosters would definitely get on board for trying to lure Porter if he wants out of Norman. That would be a good way to get everybody on board for a buyout, which would kick into high gear the rumors that, you know, Travis could be gone by the end of the weekend.
yeah, it would. But the thing there is, like, listen, our season's in the kind of shape where we're hearing about different coaches' names every day, right? And
Every day.
we don't even know officially what the fate of our coach is. We don't know the timing. We don't know anything. So we're already very deep into the A, B, C, and D lists of possible replacements, and we
Mm-hmm.
still don't even know what's going to happen and when. So it's crazy how far out ahead of things that we get as the hardcore fans. So yeah, the Moser rumor is out there. I guess there might be a change in department leadership at Oklahoma. I have not looked into that, so take that with a grain of salt. But
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know, but
this one I have no idea. I'm just kind of,
there's
it'd be
also
interesting.
there's also DePaul, right? Because Porter's a Chicago
Of
guy,
course.
and DePaul's open, and they're a Big East team. So in a bigger city, bigger conference, it's just naturally a more high profile job. Even if we, as somebody who has been in the same conference as DePaul more often than not over the years, don't think they're any better than we are. It's look, they're in the Big East and we aren't. That's what it is. They're in
Mhm.
Chicago and we aren't. Uh, that's life. And there might be a situation where maybe they have, more ability to meet everything Porter wants. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, anyway.
But but
Anyway.
but that's you're right. That's the kind of rumor on that day that leads to a little more like,
Mhm.
oh yeah, there's a name that would get everybody united behind that direction, right?
Yes. The Billikens they love putting lipstick on a pig.
They do.
And they really put a little bit of that Maybelline. Maybelline does lipstick. I don't know. They put a little on that this first half. They were down 10, but George Churchich had other plans. He came in and scored eight in the last few minutes of the half, including 5 to end the half, and keeps Lou within 2 possessions. He ended up being the top scorer in
Yeah,
the first
in the
half.
half. Right. But then he didn't get in,
Yeah.
Zach,
No, he
until
didn't. No, you know
until
what? He didn't.
just over 4 minutes to play in the game. And it was like, wait, what? Did you see him shoot the ball? Like, that's a nice looking shot, man. Like, if you're worried about his defense, who cares? What's the high mark rule? Just
Oh,
outscore your assignment.
we're gonna get into the defense.
Yeah.
We're getting
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
it
We sure are.
because
I accidentally already got into the defense because I was so mad
yes.
about one play.
Um, but the game did stay in reach. But I mean, that's Frank Martin and UMass. They're
Yeah.
not very good. They led by 11 at a couple points in the second half. Eventually won by that margin.
Yeah.
I mean, this is. I think we all know the the reasons that we lost this game, but give me one of them.
Yeah. Offensive rebounding, I think, is the one that got called out the most. Um, as probably the reason. That's the one that seemed to get called out by the coaches and press and fans the most. If I had to give you just one reason, Zach, but I don't think that was it.
No, it was also the defense as well in this one. Um, they had 40 points in the paint.
Right.
Um, yeah, that's not good.
No, it's not. And how do you do that? You out rebound SLU by 9. You
Yeah,
don't turn it over because SLU is only forcing 7 in this game, which is actually more on average than we've forced in the last 9 games. I think
we
Stu
are
Durando
improving.
Stu Durando tweeted out we're averaging in the last 9 games 5.8 forced turnovers a game, which is an abysmal number. If that were a season number, it would be last in the country by a long shot. It's terrible. We turned it over 12 times, which isn't too bad, but like, you've got that margin there that you want to erase. And then they put UMass on the line too much. So yeah, UMass ends up with 40 points in the paint. They outscore SLU 18-8 on second chance points because of those offensive rebounds. And that's exactly what happens when you're -9 in rebounds, you're +5 in turnovers, and you're +5 in fouls. It's just a recipe for an 11-point loss. I mean, it's all right there. But Zach, you during the game kind of tweeted out that it just felt weird there.
Yeah, the vibes in the arena were just. It felt like it felt like a tribute band was like a Travis Ford tribute band.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I don't know. It felt like Travis Ford's whole family was there. You know, like his father was there. I think his mom was there and his sister and her husband. I think. But it just felt like it felt like a swan song to me, like in a weird way. Um,
So you're hearing the buzz before the game. You see the tweet from Zay Shafitz. He's there in the front row. Chris May, the athletic director, is there. Ford's whole family is May, who we haven't seen a lot of
oh
lately.
yeah, he finally put out a podcast.
He did put one out this week for the first time since October, I think.
Oh my, not much
And
to
then
talk about.
and then so you're seeing all these things. You see his family there, and it definitely I could see like kind of looking around and like being
They're
like, wow,
wearing
this is
they're wearing suits,
they're wearing suits, right? It
which
was
is
the
an odd,
coaches versus cancer.
which I
So
thought would
they've
have
still
been
got the
odd.
tennis shoes, but they've
Yeah,
got suits.
that would have
Yeah,
been that would have been funny. His last game, he just has the suit back on.
right.
No, it was weird, man. And once again, like I don't know. I don't want to go into a rant about production values at Billiken games because I do. I got to talk about defense. We got to get there, but we got good production um out of the whole starting lineup. Hughes had a career high 14 in 24 minutes, but he fouled out. I
Yeah,
don't. I looked up. I don't know where he scored 14 points. Somebody told me he had 4 threes. I don't remember him.
they were all were they all in the first half, or they were relatively early on in the game. He was much better in this game, even though he fouled out. He was much better in this game than he's been lately. He's been bad lately, just to be quite frank about it. But I do think all 4 of those were in the first half, or at least 3 of them were.
Jimerson had 16 with 4 assists in a bounce back game. I liked what I saw in this game from Jimerson. Scored on really 3 different levels. Ezewiro had 12 and 3. The 3 being rebounds, not assists.
Yeah. Yeah. Not what you want from your, very large five man. That's for sure.
Hargrove had 10, 4, and 3. Meadows had 9 points and 7 assists, and I thought he was not very good in this one.
Not very good.
Yeah.
Defensively, I had issues with him. I already talked about the way Cross basically shoveled him down to the baseline to let their point guard do whatever he wanted. But yeah, he was fine. 7 assists is a good number, but a lot of that is because Medley just really didn't play in this one.
Uh, Speaking of Medley and Parker were two players whose minutes were cut. As Churchich and Van Bussel both got pretty decent minutes in this one. And I gotta remind you guys, I love that big Dutch bastard. I love when he gets in there and throws some elbows, plays dirty. I love it. I want it. I want to see it more. I thought he did really well. Other than again, we're talking about defense here. Like he may not be great defensively, but he sure as hell isn't going to take any shit from anyone physically. Why not?
He's our enforcer. He's our enforcer. 4 fouls in 8 minutes. And I actually thought the first 4 or 5 minutes that he played in the first half, he was great. He did more than just hurt people. He got some rebounds. I think he had I'm not looking at the box score now, but I want to say he had a putback or a couple free throws. And yeah, like he was effective. He was a nice player. He came out a little frustrated on a foul, but came back in later, fouled a couple more guys. But yeah, I think there was a question, right? Because Dalger, he was whatever number of minutes he got, he was a double-digit minute guy. And they were down a little bit lately, like his last couple games, 12 minutes, 16 minutes. Before that, low 20s for a few games. And you have to go back really into December to get any of his like kind of high 20s or 30+ minute kind of games. It was really that first part of the season where he was getting a lot more minutes. The last 5 games, they came down, but that's still minutes to give, right? And so the question was, how do those get distributed? And it seemed like it wasn't just that his minutes that were being handed out, but it seemed like Parker and Medley found themselves further down the bench. And that was interesting to me. I know there were some comments coming into this game that anybody who put in the effort and played well in practice was going to get minutes in the game. And that came true when the other, Euro freshman came in. And it just wound up being interesting that over the course of the game, Parker and Medley were the ones who also lost out. It wasn't just Dalger being replaced.
Did we talk about Parker?
Yeah, so there was a comment after the game. Somebody put it on Billikens.com about how visibly frustrated he was on the bench in the last couple timeouts, and you definitely saw that a little bit. He was kind of like hitting his hands together, scratching his head. He just seemed like literally itching to get back out there. Somebody said he was like kind of hitting himself in the head. I didn't quite see it that way. It wasn't like going crazy or anything, but yeah, he definitely was frustrated. I mean, we said that in the previous game. The frustration is palpable across the team. And he really wore that, I think, more visibly than anybody else in this game.
The defense.
Well, wait. Before we get to the defense, I want to make a couple offensive notes, Zach, because
no, this is how bad the defense was.
Yes, because but I think this is also an indictment of the offense too, right? Because we go 11 for 25 from 3, that's 44%. We go 14 of 16 from the free throw line, that's 88%. And we still lose. We still only, we score 73, which is a pretty average number. It's not bad. It's not good. It's fine. There's just so little creativity on this team, right? Like there's just not much playmaking ability. You get out rebounded. Obviously, they're not hitting the offensive glass and getting themselves those second chance opportunities and easy buckets. But I'm like, on a night where you're doing everything you need to do from the free throw line, you're hitting your threes. 11 for 25 is the number for this team I would take every night, no exceptions. And there just wasn't a whole lot else to go with that, right? Like that, those numbers there account for well over half of your points. That's what 47 of your 73 points right there. And it's just the other stuff that's supposed to come a little easier. That wasn't there. I just lack of playmaking ability on this team really bothers me. So I think now is where we get to the defense, but I do want to make a note, just like the overall effort in this game, I didn't think it was bad, right? Like they really seemed to kind of quit against Davidson, but
Mhm.
that wasn't happening in this game. Like, and after that was something I was really looking for coming out of that Davidson game. Was that the beginning of the end, or the beginning of something new? And inconclusive after this game. We lost by 11. The widest margin of the game wound up being the final margin, but I didn't think the effort was poor. Like, they didn't just seem to kind of quit on the coach, right? Um, so anyway, with that being said, I think we need to talk about how the defense is still really bad. Like, this UMass team is fine. They're okay. They're an average team. They're not like 84 points on the road good.
No. And I want to talk about the way, like, we've heard, and we'll get to the the post game comments after this one.
Yeah.
We'll get into it with Rammer's assessment of the difference in this game, but I want to talk about how exasperated Travis Ford. He's simultaneously been exasperated that he cannot figure out the right defensive strategy to make this team work. And yet he's also said that if this team isn't pressing, they're not going to be at the best defensively. So what I'm saying is why how, you had the answer at the start of the season. You haven't had a chance to prove it. Why don't we find out if that answer is right?
Yeah.
Finally, just press like George Churchich is just an agent of chaos out there on defense. He may not be very good. As Steph Van Bussel's an agent of chaos out there, it may not be very good, but like, press with those guys. Let TJ play free safety, and if they try to go over the top, let TJ handle it. He's got long arms. He can reach over. Like, I just don't understand how you can continue to say you can't figure out what's going on defense when you have said that this team is going to be the best when it's pressing, yet you have not done it. Who cares if you don't have numbers? You're 8-12. You're 8-12, and you're sitting in last place in the Atlantic 10. Who cares? There are no, like, there's no excuse to not try it. Like, that's what you wanted to do going the season. Did you not say this team practiced pressing every session in preseason? And yet you're not willing to go to it because of what? Like, Dogger left now? Like, what is your reasoning?
You can't say they're shorthanded when they have 11 scholarship players available, Magassa being ineligible and Dogger being gone. And all 11 of them got in this game. They're all healthy. They all got in this game. 11 is plenty to go press with.
Yeah.
We've seen plenty of teams play not 11 guys in a game and press the whole time. Like, we've seen that before with VCU. We've seen it from other teams that they have that ability. And you're right. If they're that bad at defense, just throw them at the other team. Like, literally just push them up the court, create chaos, create turnovers. You're not getting stops, and you're not creating turnovers.
And you're sure as hell aren't winning.
That's absolutely right. This defense is the worst of both worlds. So not only would I institute a press, the half court defense, Zach, would be completely just based on just sound, basic fundamentals. Insult them if you have to. Install the most simplified high school man-to-man defense and drill them on a few basic principles on how they're going to deal with screens, how they're going to close out, how they're going to stay in front of their man, how they're going to talk. Basic stuff. Do not get complicated. Save time in scouts. Like, yes, scout other teams, but like, so Travis comes off the floor at halftime and he goes, they hit 6 threes this half. They only hit 5 threes a game. And it was like, Travis, you're worried about exactly the wrong thing. And only duh, like this is what every team does against your team. Have you not seen your own team play? This is what happens. Every team overachieves from the 3-point line against us. You should not be frustrated about that. So my point is that like he's getting so like into the scouts, and I think he kind of he's overthinking the scouts in a way that's like, this is what they do. So we don't have to worry about that. They're not a good 3-point shooting team. We're not worried about the 3-point line. And then he's like, but they hit all these threes. They're still college basketball players. They still have the ability to hit open shots, right? Like you're not playing some goon high school team that's just not good or whatever. Like they have dudes who can play. Like even if they're a mediocre college basketball team, they can still hit open looks.
Yeah.
You've got to be prepared for that. So I would completely strip down the defense, stop worrying about opponent to opponent. We're going to, like he said, we're going to stay up till 2 a.m, getting into it,
This,
figuring out a plan. I'm like,
yes, I
get
was just
back
going to
to
get into
basics.
this.
Throw out the book, get back to basics. These guys do not know how to handle a screen. They don't know how to close out. They don't know how to talk. They don't know how to do any of the basic things. Get that in order before you start worrying about each player's shooting percentage on UMass.
It's insane. Like you said that, and that reminded me of that quote. I'm trying to pull it up, but I have to go incognito. Damn it. But he said we change what we do every game.
Yes.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
Why
Why?
are you changing?
Those guys are lost.
They
You can
have
see
no
it. They are lost. They
they
don't change what you do every game. Just make them good at the things that make teams good at defense first.
he want Travis Ford wants to be the greatest coach of all time. Like he wants to be like, oh, he wants to be the genius.
Yeah.
I think he buys into this like Travis Ford can't coach
I'll show them.
narrative.
I'll outsmart
Right.
them.
I
And
think
every once in a
so.
while there are games where like we're not so much this season, but in season past, we've had plenty of games where we've seen like, oh wow, we really did a different thing there and
Yeah.
out coached and outplayed them. That has happened every once in a while. But I'm a lot more impressed with the teams that do what they do well from
Yes.
day to day, and they just don't make a lot of mistakes. They don't give things away. We're if you change your defense for every opponent, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, that's one thing. But it's not working against anybody. Like the defense is bad every day, so
No.
you need to get back to basics.
I take issue with this idea that that Travis says find some pride and defend, and then you know Hughes and Jimerson say at the end of the day defense is just pride. No, it's geometry.
Yeah,
It's like these guys literally don't know how to defend uh in a sound. They're fundamentals to defending, and these guys don't have it.
right.
You're not going to teach them how to defend. Like we figured that out. That Travis
Yeah,
Ford can't teach. I think that's what excited people when Harriman got brought in.
yeah,
That maybe we would see some better defense, but I think you can't teach. Nobody else can teach Majerus's defense or the defense the way Majerus taught it. And I mean, you're certainly not going to teach these guys that defense.
well,
Uh,
it for one, it takes years.
yeah,
Like when Majerus got here, he started over, and we took some brutal losses, record-setting losses in those first couple of years, as he stripped the thing down and built it. And people forget that that takes time, but once you do, players who come into the system that's already working, you don't need to start over every year, right? Like you've already got the machine humming along. You just need to get those parts into where they go and functioning properly. And that never really has been built in this time around. You've got guys like Hassan French and Jordan Goodwin who have individual skill sets that make up for a lot of other issues that might exist within your defense. You don't have guys like that right now. And if you're trying to institute something different for every single opponent, you're confusing a lot of guys who are a little younger, haven't played together a lot, and they don't have a solid foundation to build upon, and that worries me.
You know what's absolutely incredible? How many people are holding water for Travis Ford this season? Like in the media, other coaches, and I get that other coaches are sympathetic, empathetic to like the plight of having to the pressure.
Sure.
But SLU is not a high pressure job.
No.
Um, but like Frank Martin talking about like, dude, we all know Frank Martin doesn't want Travis to be gone because then that's another coach that's worse than him in the A10.
Well, I think even more fundamental than that is just the fact that those guys all get their turn in the barrel, right? Like if they've
Yeah.
been in coaching long enough, Frank Martin has had his seat been hot before. He's
Oh
been
yeah.
fired before. He's had to resign before. Like these guys who have been around long enough have all been in really uncomfortable situations, and they all know each other. One of the things, like if you're in a basketball program, you realize coaching is a small fraternity. They
Mm-hmm.
all know each other. They all know who each other are, and there's something about seeing a guy really get it, really get his get some heat, that you automatically look inward and go like, ooh, I would hate to be in that seat, or I've been there before. And so I think there's a little bit of that kind of
I'd love to
solidarity.
be in that seat making 2.5 million.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have talked about this before, but SLU is a very low pressure
It is.
job for that amount of money. I mean, that's power conference, that's football school money, and if you have this kind of season at a football school, at a power conference school, at a school with a big NIL war chest right now, you're having to hire security detail and stuff. I mean, this is not that kind of job.
We talked about quotes, and in the post game show, Rammer said the difference in the game was that they weren't able to corral loose balls and rebounds. I thought it was really we should just allow our good friend and big J journalist Carter Chapley to impart some wisdom.
Yeah, because Rammer said that's the kind of stuff that doesn't show up in stat sheets, and he said those are literally the things that show up in stat sheets. They're called rebounds and turnovers. But it was the tone too, Zach, because it felt like Rammer was trying to make excuses for him.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it was unlucky. Those are 50-50 balls. How many times have you felt like, oh, the 50-50 balls didn't go our way in this game or that way? The 50-50 calls didn't go our way, as Rammer has often pointed out. But I think like there's an effort thing, there's an ability thing there. If they want to call it pride, fine, but I think effort is a little more simple concept to wrap your head around as it relates to making more 50-50 balls, more rebounds, more loose balls go your way.
Yeah, the interview with Ford was a little odd in the beginning, and I thought it sounded like he was getting ready to cry.
There
Um,
was that first question Rammer threw to him. There was a long pause. Like there's nothing worse in radio than dead air, like long dead air, right? And you and I experiment with that unintentionally sometimes on this show, but that's the kind of thing that makes your heart stop. And so I thought like, okay, he hasn't said anything yet. What's going to come out right now? I was like, did this dude just get fired? Like, is he about to cry? Like, what's going on? And he sounded a little exasperated. He struggled getting that first answer out, right? And you're right. He did kind of sound emotional, but then after a few beats, after another question or two, he kind of settled into that same groove.
and that groove is one we have heard so many times, Pete.
It was just a lot of the same stuff, saying like, you know,
That's
he's
a
just
great team over there.
yeah,
He hasn't done that at all, which is awesome. Like he really hasn't gotten into the like, man, that's gonna be an NCAA tournament team over there.
yeah, I know because he knows he'd be lying. Like we're
Yes.
looking at a lot of these teams, we're like, that's not an NIT team. Like this,
No.
these team seasons end when they're out in Brooklyn. That's that, and we all know it. So why even lie? They're all very average teams, but yeah, it was a lot of the same stuff. Like he just sounds, like I imagine you spend days scouting an opponent and trying to break it down and trying to overthink it, and then he's confused when another one of them scores in the mid 80s against us. And and any of us, you and I, can go, well, we're seeing the same things over and over. We don't see your scout, we don't see your preparation, we don't know how you're looking at this opponent, but what we see is the same thing. We're not guarding the perimeter.
It's kind of
All
amazing, isn't it?
all of those
It's
defensive
such an
principles.
interesting way to think about it that
Right.
we like that they're doing all of this stuff and then doing the same thing.
It's really strange. Like let's completely throw out the book and change our preparations every game for the exact same result. It's very strange. But anyway, so he settles into kind of the same, just sounding frustrated and exasperated and overwhelmed and all of those things.
Me
And so
too, man. Me
there
too.
there wasn't a whole lot really to pull from his quotes. It was more just that initial tone. I guess you were listening on the ride home, and I had pulled it up on my laptop and after the game and was listening to it and was just like, yeah, where's this gonna go? And then it got a lot less interesting than I thought it was gonna be.
Yeah, the whole night was a lot less interesting than I think we expected it. I
Yeah.
don't know if we expected it to, but I thought things would get weird because it
Well,
felt really weird in there.
it wasn't a huge blowout, right? So it wasn't a complete disaster. That like there weren't people sitting there booing in the stands, right? Like because it wasn't
But that's
over.
but the funny thing about that is that's literally Travis Ford.
What's literally
That
Travis Ford?
avoiding disaster just
Oh,
enough
right, right,
to
right. Yeah, sure, yeah, yeah. You're right, but I mean, but the real disaster here is the zooming out, right? Because then now you go, well, we've got sole possession of last place in the Atlantic 10. And that it's never not surprising to me to be in that position. I know we were there under Cruz, and that to me felt like rock bottom forever. Like I never thought I'd see anything again in my lifetime that bad. And here we are. We're back in last place in the A10. In the A10, which got a single bid last year, which may get a single bid again this year. Um, it's inexcusable. You just can't be there. So we get back to the rumors circling around before the game, and we see Shafitz and May have a quick chat at the down at the end of the floor, kind of in the corner behind the basket a little bit after the game.
not
And
tonight, Chris.
depending on your angle, some people said it looked perfectly amicable. Other people said it looked uncomfortable.
Mm.
I don't know. There couldn't have been a whole lot of people hanging out that long to watch the whole thing, but there were still people milling about the arena and who caught it. Uh, and we thought, well, God, are we gonna hear something tonight? Is something gonna happen?
That's
But
why I rushed to the car.
yeah, right. But since then, things have been silent. And Travis did his regular Sunday morning spot on KMOX Sports Radio as well. So, uh, yeah, steady as she goes, I guess, Zach.
Steady. No. Um, yeah, dude, I just don't know. I don't know the quality. We talk about raising the floor, and I don't even know if we're there. I don't even know if that's true at this point.
Mhm.
Quality though, man. You know what's quality? Two men in a garden, baby. Two men in a garden.
I don't know if anything could be more quality than your transitions, Zach. They're always the highest of quality. But
Always
I
ad libbed.
I had to do a little retail therapy after the game.
Mm.
And I literally did this. I went to twomeningarden.com and I put in an order. I usually do 6 at a time. This time was no exception. I told you a couple weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago, I don't remember which episode it was, that I was going to go ahead and order those fruit salsas again because it's been a while since I had any of them. So I got one of each. I'm going to retry those and see if the mango remains my favorite or not. I got some pickles. I got to get some pickles. It's been a while since I've had their pickles in my fridge. And then I went over to their partner section, their partner products, and I grabbed a couple of these float trip pickles. They've got
Oh,
the jalapenos, the pickles, and the relish. So I did the jalapenos and the pickles, and I will report back on those. I do think it's pretty interesting that not necessarily a competitor, but a partner product. I think that the fact that they put other pickles on their website is pretty interesting, but they are different. They are more of like a jalapeno kind of thing, kind of a hybrid. So I will let you know what I think of those along with the fruit salsas coming up. And one thing I noticed, Zach, if you use the offer code, and maybe I should whisper this part because it's not ours, but if you use the offer code Julia, they're still doing free shipping nationwide. So you can't really beat that. Free
no.
shipping straight to your door anywhere in the continental US. Head over to twomeninthegarden.com and do what I did and make yourself a custom six pack.
Oh, Pete, let's go around the A10. I was just thinking about the continental US and that I've been watching the new season of True Detective set in Alaska.
Mm.
And I was like, you can't get any 2 Men in a Garden for the night season.
No, you got to pay a little bit more to get it up there, I think.
Oh, a lot more, I assume.
Yeah.
Uh, Tuesday the 23rd, Pete. VCU 74, Loyola 67. VCU's kind of settling in. Bamacili, um, he remains hot in this
Yeah.
one. St. Joe's ekes out a win by one over UMass 78-77. Second time UMass has lost by one at the end in a span of a week. Duquesne 54, Bonaventure 50. There was a lot of teeth grinding um, from fans of both teams in this one.
Yeah, apparently that game was just luckily I didn't watch it, but people thought that was maybe the worst game in conference so far this season. I won't argue with them. I mean, certainly being on the business end of a blowout is never fun, but 54-50 and apparently it was just unwatchable. So, yuck.
Dayton beats LaSalle 66-54. Pow!
Yeah, at LaSalle, they needed
At
that one.
LaSalle. Wednesday the 24th, Fordham 71, Rhode Island 68. I don't think I expected Rhode Island to be this bad.
Me neither. No. No,
Um,
this is not a good Fordham team.
Richmond moved to 6-0 with an 82-74 win over the first president of the United States. They were tied with Dayton after this one. It made for a nice storyline heading into their weekend matchup. Pete,
Yeah.
tell us about Friday 10 and all day 10 on Saturday.
Yeah, on Friday, St. Bonaventure beat St. Joe's 91-72. The most inconsistent offense in the A10 is at it again. Bonaventure will score 51, turn around and score 91. I don't know what's going on up there. That team is just, I would never want to gamble on St. Bonaventure. That's the kind where you're going to get burned every night. Saturday, the 27th, LaSalle 80, George Washington 70. Pow, another pow for our friends. Uh,
Wow.
up on Olney Avenue. George Mason 92, Rhode Island 84. They stink, stink, stink. Duquesne 68, Fordham 59. Duquesne, that's a 2-game winning streak now after starting 0-5 in the league. And then the big one, Zach, Richmond 69,
Nice.
Dayton 64. This game against the unbeaten first place teams was 20-15 at halftime. 20 to
That's
15 in Richmond.
ridiculous.
Yes. And everyone was freaking out. And somehow they both managed to score a lot more in the second half.
They both lost.
49 points apiece, I guess, in the second half. But yeah, Richmond is now the last undefeated team, and their win streak is 10 as Dayton's win streak ends at 13. It was the longest in the country, actually, coming into that game. And the last game of the night, VCU 63, Davidson 58. Davidson fans melted down after that one because they were leading just about the entire game and then coughed it up at the end at home to VCU. Davidson did that thing where they have, I don't know if it's their swim team or their water polo or whatever, where they're all in Speedos in the front row. Very distracting. It worked for a while. I guess it didn't work the whole time though. And that is the week that was in the A10.
Yes, it was. Let's preview Loyola and Fordham. Unfortunately, our friends over at the Blair's podcast didn't make it, and
Yes.
we Fordham fans just stink.
Yeah,
So
I'm afraid if we had a Fordham fan on, they would just start swearing at us or trying to like get us to buy into
uncultured,
crypto or something like that. I don't know.
uncultured.
They're the weirdest people.
Loyola, break it down for us, Pete.
Yeah, we'll do this quickly because we've already seen them once. We lost to them 80 to 73 on January 3rd. So not even a month, and we'll be seeing them again. We did a scouting report on them that game, so we're not going to get too deep into the weeds. But just to update you, they're 4-2 since then. They've beaten Duquesne, St. Joe's, UMass, and Fordham, and they lost to Richmond and VCU. So no surprising results, really. If the season ended today, Loyola would be a top four team. They'd get a double bye in the conference tournament behind the undefeated Richmond. 6-1 Dayton would be number two. And then I don't know what the tiebreaker would be. I guess VCU would have the three, and Loyola would have the four because of that head-to-head result. Philip Alston is still their top scorer, but he's coming off back-to-back bad games where he has scored a combined 9 points in the last two. Dame Billiken has been a lot better recently. The Dartmouth transfer, he's kind of settled into a nice groove. Scored 17 points in 17 minutes at Fordham. He scored 14 points in 16 minutes at VCU, so really, really efficient. Jaden Dawson has also come on strong lately, while Braden Norris has not really been scoring much, settling into kind of more of a distributor role. Their freshman, Miles Rubin, the local kid, 6'11", really long, has been a little inconsistent, but did have a double-double at VCU with 11 and 11. To just kind of put it as simply as possible, they're kind of still who they were when we saw them 4 weeks ago. They remain that team that kind of beats the team they're supposed to beat and loses to the good teams, which very well might be enough for a top four finish in this league if they keep going on that track, Zach.
We
But
we really suck. I really suck
there was there
at,
was
at
there was some
dead
dead
air.
there was some
Yeah,
dead air. Some
yeah,
dead
I'm
air.
really
And the
bad.
hearts stopped there. Our producer will edit that out though, no problem.
Yes, no question. Yeah, no, I don't know what more to say. This, like, it's just, it doesn't matter who we're gonna play.
You know,
What does he say in Angels in the Outfield?
I don't know. I
When
haven't seen that movie since the
oh
90s.
my God, you got to rewatch that movie. That movie's great.
Do I?
Yes.
I mean, look, we're on the road. It's a quick turnaround from a weekend and an exhausting week. So yeah, no, my hopes are not super high for this one.
Um, what are we expecting out of Fordham? They've kind of had a bit of a tumultuous season
Yeah,
after last year's darling performance.
yeah, they were really good last year. Really, I mean, they out athletic us. They beat us all over the place up at Rose Hill last year. And they were 25-8 on the season, but they've come back down to earth. Keith Ergo in his second season. They're 9-11 overall. They're 3-4 in the A10. They're you hate when I say it. They're a very poor shooting team. They're 321st in the nation in overall field goal percentage. They shoot about 32% from three. They're under 48% from inside the arc. They're a solid rebounding team, so I'll give them that. But really, what they are is aggressive. They foul a lot. They block a lot of shots. They force a lot of turnovers. This is not pretty basketball. It's aggressive, kind of in your face basketball. They're just going to try and frustrate you. They're going to slop the game up as much as they can, and try and take you out of your game. Their top scorer is a 6-foot senior guard. His name's Jafet Medor. I always mess up his last name. He's a grad transfer from Texas San Antonio who spent his first 3 years at the JUCO level. He's actually a pretty good shooter from outside, and you don't want to put him on the free throw line, but he's really not great when he has to take it inside and shoot from mid range or try and get to the rim. He's really small. Elijah Gray and Will Richardson, they each average 10.4 a game. Gray's 6'8", 220, Richardson 6'3", so they're much different players. Gray will actually step out and shoot the three, though. Richardson's a kid from New Jersey who SLU actually, I believe, offered out of high school. They have a few more guys who average 7 to 10 points a game. Just to highlight a couple, Abdu Simbilia is the other big man. He's very foul prone. So I would like have guys just taking it right at him. Get Steph in there, get him to goon it up a little bit, draw some fouls, whatever you got to do to kind of make them a little bit smaller, I think. And then they have a guy named Kyle Rose. He doesn't shoot it a ton, but he's their only guy who's over 40% from three. So you got to keep an eye on him. They do host Richmond between now and the game at SLU, so I would have to imagine that's going to be a loss. But again, their style contrasts with Richmond's enough in a kind of a pretty interesting way. You can't take anything for granted in a conference road game, even if you're Richmond and you've won 10 games in a row. Zach, I think this is actually a pretty winnable game for SLU. It's going to be ugly no matter what the outcome is. These are two teams who are both ugly to watch. But I think this is also a game where you go back to that Meadows Medley combo. This is a matchup where I absolutely think that would be an effective backcourt. So I would probably go to that maybe not start them, but I'd go to that early. And I'd also try and get their second big in foul trouble and just kind of see what I could do from there.
Let's talk about our A10 Survivor picks. January the 19th through the 25th. We won all three this week. We're getting better.
Yeah. We won all three last week.
MMP, the pod pick, Loyola over Fordham wins. We both, Peter and I picked Dayton over URI. That's a W. Yeah. Our picks for the 26th through February 1st. The podcast is officially out after losing GW over LaSalle. But we are both still alive in the second chance. We both took Mason over Rhode Island, and Rhode Island does what they do best.
I think we should have taken Mason for the pod as well, like all three done the same, because I think we still had that one to use.
We should just take whoever plays URI the rest of the way.
It kind of feels like that. It's going to
until it's SLU, and then we're going to get waxed.
Right.
Yeah. Women's side of things. They had one game this week, 72-61 loss against Richmond, near the top of the A10. Richmond is on Sunday the 28th. It was the Billikens era. No, it wasn't the Billikens era tour, Pete. It was the Billiken Eras tour.
Eras tour.
Eras tour.
Era? Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I guess that means something to some people. I don't know.
I thought I double checked that on their.
We don't want to upset the Swifties because their justice is swift.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay. So I do want to defend myself on the schedule. Are we calling out the marketing department right now? It says Billiken's Era Tour, and so I thought they purposely changed it. I thought they purposely changed it.
Oh no!
It says Era.
Well, is this some sort of copyright issue?
I don't know. I don't think this is. She's fighting a whole other host of issues right now.
Are her and Kelsey on the rocks?
No.
Oh, okay.
And the Chiefs just won.
I thought you said fighting. Yeah. Okay, sorry. I was worried there was domestic issues.
No. She's got it's like a whole AI thing that I don't, family show. We don't have to get into like.
I love that movie. That's with Haley Joel Osment, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Let's get back to women's basketball.
Yeah. Well, there's enough Taylor Swift coverage in the NFL these days. We don't.
Yeah, I don't. To me, and I was just kind of watching it from a distance. To me, this one just felt like we didn't have an answer to Richmond's last run.
Yeah, I think that's fair, but the issue that I had with it, right? Because like they were tied after the first quarter and down 3 at halftime, but the issue to me was that they shot under 30% in both the second and third quarters. And like you just can't you can have one, right? You can have one quarter where you just don't shoot well against a good team, but 2 in a row is just a little too much. Got them in too deep a hole. The reason they were only down 3 at halftime is because they forced so many turnovers. They forced 14 in the first half, including 10 in the second quarter alone. So Richmond, when they got looks, were shooting pretty well. But SLU was just forcing so many turnovers that it kept them in it. And it was just the shooting, Zach. I mean, under 30% in those quarters, you can't get away with that. It wasn't just Richmond's defense. SLU missed a lot of open looks. From when I turned it on, they missed like 2 point blank layups in a row. Eh, that was really the story to me, and that's what leads to a run, right? Is like you go through a stretch where you don't force a few turnovers and you're not making shots, and next thing you know, Richmond they've got enough shooters that they're going to make you pay for that.
Yeah, this one, it is what it is. Again, you don't like losing one at home. I don't know. They didn't quit. Solid fourth quarter. I think they needed some threes to fall, and it wasn't happening.
Right.
I just don't know. I think it's becoming a revelation how important Brooke Flowers was to this team.
It is, and they really need to recruit shooters. Was it Kylie Bass who we lost to transfer a couple seasons ago?
Yeah.
And I would like somebody that like that on the roster who's just like that's
Peyton
what
Kennedy
she does.
kind of is that.
Kennedy, yeah, she can be. She did have like she had kind of a down time in the middle of the season where she just really wasn't hitting. This game, she actually was. She had 20 points in this one, 3 of 10 from three. Maybe one less than you want to see her hit in 10 attempts, but 8 of 19 overall. But nobody else was hitting. McMakin, Gray, they went a combined 0 for 7 from three. SLU shot 1 for 12 from three in the second half, which is not a way to make up a deficit. 4 for 23 from the game. They shot under 33% overall, and then Richmond blocked 9 shots. So if SLU's not forcing 28 turnovers like they did, this one's completely out of hand. But that's really what kept them in the game, is that effort kind of stuff. Unfortunately, Zach, they had 4 players with 4 fouls, and then they had another player foul out, Ken Calhoun. So there were just too many of those negative factors to overcome against a good team. Richmond came into this game 17-4, 7-1 in conference. So they're one of the best teams that they'll see the rest of the way. You can't shoot like that against a team like this.
Next up, Wednesday the 31st at Dayton, and then February the 3rd at Davidson. That Dayton game's got to be a win. Dayton is terrible. They just who they just they just beat some Bonaventure. It's a battle of like two really bad,
Right.
Two still rebuilding programs.
Right.
But yeah,
they did beat them badly though, and they do have another win over. They beat Loyola, they beat George Washington, so they're not bottom of the conference. Right.
A lot of parity. We're in that muck in the middle. We're not really.
That's right.
Volleyball. A lot of announcements out of volleyball. Delaney Rice, Abby Lynn, Carly Rogers will be returning next season. Obviously, it's great to have that veteran presence. Obviously, I also want to see a little more focus on the players that are being brought in by Beatty. But I don't think it's a situation where Kent Miller was just bringing in bad players. Maybe it was. I don't know. Lucy Rankin, the incoming class was announced. All 7 have signed. Lucy Rankin, setter from Prospect, Kentucky, attended IMG Academy in Florida. That always sounds cool, at least.
Mm-hmm.
Chloe Mon, defensive specialist from John T. Hoggard High School in Wilmington, North Carolina. Kakalaki, is that that's what Petey Pablo used to say, right? Ava Spacek, outside hitter from St. James Academy in Lenexa, Kansas. Kayla Jansen, middle blocker from St. Joe's in St. Louis. There was a recent Post-Dispatch article about her, if you haven't read it yet. 2-sport athlete, happens to be an excellent basketball player. Pete, who was the last volleyball player to play basketball?
Oh, you're going to get so mad at me. I always forget. Zach, it's on the tip of my tongue. I'm sorry.
Sammy McLeod.
There it is.
Pete, help me out.
Not that long ago. I should know that.
Help me out with this next name because I got nothing.
going to say Taya Kalajic.
Okay, I like it. Outside hitter from La Cueva High School in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Anna Alexander, an outside hitter from Shawnee Mission East in Overland Park, Kansas. And Addie Bruss, an outside hitter from St. Ursula Academy in Cincinnati, Ohio, a place you're keenly aware of.
Yeah, that was the rival high school to where my wife went. She went to Ursuline Academy, which is the rival of St. Ursula. And they say Ursuline here, not Ursuline, like they do in St. Louis, for what it's worth. But yeah, it's kind of crazy. Beatty went all over the place for this class.
No.
Um, you know, Kentucky, Kansas, North Carolina, New Mexico, Ohio. I mean, that's pretty. I'm impressed. I mean, she went and got her players.
Pete, give us some swimming and diving news.
Yeah, they had the senior meet on Saturday, the 27th against Maryville, and both the men and women won handily. The women 232 to 23, the men 227 to 30. They won so mightily, I don't think it's even worth going over the results because there weren't any records set or anything like that. SLU, as they always do, I don't know why they do this in the recap of senior day or senior night games or meets. They don't list the seniors. So I'm going to do my best here, and I think I've got all 16 of them, if judging by the roster and the picture, the number lined up. Elena Escalante, Aaron Jensen, Emily Leonard, Carly McKeon, Maggie McPherson, Ella Prilliman, Audrey Sept, Letty Williams, Alex Daw, Ethan Gray, Joe Greasy, Ethan Hiley, Jack Locke, Garrett Monk, Adrian Paseda, and David Rutan. I hope I got all your names right, but I just wanted to say a thank you, for the 4 or 5 or however many years you spent at SLU, and I hope they all feel, recognized for all the work they put in as senior swimmers. So yeah, thanks for all you did for the program, and good luck at the A10 Championships, February 21st to 24th in Hampton, Virginia. We've got a few weeks off, and then we'll cover our swimmers and see how they do in the conference meet, Zach.
And watch out for Jordan Nesbitt.
That's right. That's right. He's out there these days, isn't he?
Track and field. They competed at the Illini Challenge in Champaign, Illinois on January 26th and 27th indoor meet. 2 school records fell. Emily Nichols broke her own record in the 60 meters with a time of 7:73 in the prelims. She finished 7th in the finals. James Baker set a SLU record in the men's pole vault with a jump of 4.45 meters. A number of PRs in the event as well. Some resulted in top 10 finishes. Will Stewart ran 6.95 in the men's 60 meters for a PR in the prelims, and then ran 6.91 for a new PR and 3rd place overall. Jack McPhillips finished 4th in the 600 with a PR of 1:25.85. Taylor Schweizer, 3rd in the 3000 with a time of 8:35.04, a new personal best. Evan Brinderman went 21-10.25 in the long jump for a new PR and finished 8th. I have no idea how the long jump is scored. Sonia Morin had a new PR in the 800 and finished in 7th. Jenna Givens, 7th in the triple jump with a PR, a 37:11.25. Again, I have no idea. Next up is
how you would say it. Yeah.
Next up is the Mayo Invitational at Notre Dame on February 2nd and 3rd. Tennis, some interesting news.
Yeah. They were supposed to kick off this season this weekend with a couple matches down in Jackson, Mississippi, but it looks like those have been postponed. So I don't know when they'll make those up, but in the meantime, they will play at Oklahoma State next weekend. And yeah, Zach, by the way, it sneaks up on you every year, but it's crazy how early tennis starts. I did not think of that as like a late January start.
As our most avid of listeners know, I dabbled in tennis competitively, and yeah, it's cold as hell in high school season.
Right.
No, you know what? Because people who are listening now are psychos like us, like true psychos like us. It is it's weird that tennis, when they post things to their Instagram, that they're in Simon Rec Center training.
Yeah.
I don't know, just a thought. Something to chew on. If any tennis players listen or alumni.
Just wait till we get that big indoor facility built someday.
Absolutely. I've been banging the drum for that for a while. Yeah, that's it. That's gonna do it for us. Hell of a week. Glad everybody who listens hopefully made it through with their sanity intact. If you have any thoughts on today's episode, hit the comment section. Um, it's hard these days, Pete, but I got to do it. Go Bills.
You gotta do it, Zach. Go Bills.